I discussed death in a very open manner. I discussed the dysfunctional families that most people have.
Yeah.
It is a fact of life that there is tension between siblings.
True.
There is this whole problem of inheritance in families. 60% of the civil cases have to do with property disputes.
Yeah.
Right. So I spoke very openly. I apologized, saying that this might sound very harsh, but this is reality.
Yeah.
After that, people came to get their book signed, and 2 or 3 people just held on to my hand and said, "You really have opened our eyes."
The Sound of Money with Santosh Sirur.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sound of Money. And today on my season 2, I have a very special guest who's been on my season 1 of those key episodes in last year. I have Monika Halan with me. She's an eminent writer, author, speaker, and of course, very, very well known for her 3 books. Let's Talk Money, Let's Talk Mutual Funds. Now we're going to talk about Let's Talk Legacy. Hi, Monika, and welcome back to the Sound of Money.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Delighted to be back. And very happy to see how your podcast is going from strength to strength.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Monika. Monika, let's talk about your 3rd book, Let's Talk Legacy.
Yes.
I believe this is a lot different from your previous 2 books, right? How is your 3rd book different from the other 2 books on mutual funds and money?
This book is different because I have written less and the readers will actually write more, because it's not a book to read, it's a book to document your financial life. It's a diary, it's a workbook. Let me take this opportunity and actually show the viewers.
Sure.
Wow. The book actually it's like a diary.
Yeah.
Where you have to fill, your financial life. So there is text, but very little text. It's mainly chapterized information, which people really need to record. So the reason I've done this is that I've discovered that we all don't record our financial lives. And if something were to happen, the family is left high and dry. They have no idea what the assets are, where the passwords. I mean, right now, I think we need to save about 50 passwords, different relationships, right from your bank to your mutual fund, to even your OTT services, your Wi-Fi, your utilities.
Absolutely.
Everything has a password.
Yeah.
And in the transition, people really struggle to get this information. So this Let's Talk Legacy is actually a culmination of a process that I do for myself.
Okay.
I've recorded my own financial life for over 15 years. And then I thought it's a good idea that I bring it to the readers of my first 2 books, and of course, new readers.
Yeah.
Can use it to document their lives, because everyone means to do it, but they don't know how, they don't know what to record. When you go through this book, you will get the cues. Bank account number, the website, the IFSC code, nominee names, nominee details. For the locker, where is the key kept? Details like this you can record in the books.
Absolutely.
That's really been the idea, that it is something like the editor at HarperCollins said, it's not for your bookshelf, it's for your locker.
Wonderful. Yeah, beautifully put. In fact, the need for it, especially in case of emergencies, and but I think people realize the need for this kind of a document during COVID, when you lost your the ones who are caretakers, your husbands, dads, fathers were taking care of these information, and suddenly you were locked out, no passwords, no idea of where the bank information is. So was this one of the triggers that really you thought you should come up with a book like this?
So actually 2 triggers. One is, of course, COVID, because I got a number of calls from even corporate women who suddenly lost their husbands.
True.
And you know how it is, you're working a job, you're managing the home, kids. So this is one thing that the man would look after. In traditional, typical homes, not traditional, just typical homes. It's a fact of life. And then if he suddenly passed away due to COVID, they had no idea. True. And these are MBAs and chartered accountants themselves, who just had given, in a partnership, you give one part of the job away. And they had no idea. They really, so during COVID, I actually did a series of blog posts saying that please maintain a diary called If I Die Before You. It's a little harsh, that name. And I struggled with the publisher to use that, but I think the wisdom was that it's too harsh.
Yeah.
If I die before you.
Yeah.
So let's go with Let's Talk Legacy.
Harsh, but brutally honest words, right? That's what the reality
correct,
is.
Correct. Yeah. So, and the other is that the CEO at HarperCollins, he narrated an incident that his aircraft went through huge turbulence once. And he thought we were going to crash. So he said, in the last 5 minutes, I found myself putting everything down on my mobile for my wife, who has no idea. So he says, my last thoughts were to tell her the passwords.
True.
Surely it is important for us to do it when we are not in danger.
Yeah.
So he sort of pushed me, nudged me, because I was saying that, is it really going to be useful? Will the readers expect more text? He said, no, I think it's, as a publisher, he said, I think there's merit in putting the book out. We are all taking a risk by doing a diary and not a full reading book. But I think there is merit. And honestly, I have to tell you some of the messages I've got from the financial sector. I will not take names, but some of the top names have WhatsApped me saying that you are doing public service.
Amazing. Absolutely. You're right, because, these guys are right, because this book, as you rightly say, right, it's for us to fill in and not you.
Yes.
You are guiding us. And we never ever take all this seriously, right? We thought, okay, we think, oh, why not on a weekend? But that weekend never comes.
Never comes.
Right? And at least now you have a consolidated document, not financial, but also non-financial information, which is equally important.
Absolutely. And one of my messages to the readers is that should you not want to use the book, that's okay. Create something online, but just do it. Use it as use it as a role model. But if you have your own system, check what you have missed from the book. So continue with your own system, but just do it. So the hashtag that I'm using for this is do document. Like, please do document.
Wonderful. I wanted to know what kind of feedback you received. You did mention about the CEOs of the industry telling you, but you have been on the ground there signing books. What kind of feedback have you received from your readers? I wouldn't say readers in this case, but the ones who are users of this book.
Yeah, users of the book. So we just did a big event in Jaipur. There were 300 people, and I was talking to them about things about money and legacy. And the importance of a documentation, wills, and of course, related topics. For example, for the older people, not to hand over assets while they're alive, right? So these are things that in families become very emotional. So I discussed death in a very open manner. I discussed the dysfunctional families that most people have. It is a fact of life that there is tension between siblings. There is this whole problem of inheritance in families. 60% of the civil cases have to do with property disputes. Right. So I spoke very openly. I apologized, saying that this might sound very harsh, but this is reality. After that, people came to get their book signed, and 2 or 3 people just held on to my hand and said, you really have opened our eyes. We don't know how to thank you. You have really, really opened our eyes. So with that kind of feedback, I think it's being well received.
Wonderful. I can completely understand. And I do come across, especially as a part of this podcast, a lot of listeners, audiences come in touch with me, right? There are so many, and I think this is one, maybe I can give you a hint where I think we need a book, especially NRIs, right? A lot of NRIs who are across the world. See, there was a time when these guys earned so much and they brought properties in India. They did a lot of stuff in India. But now, whatever happened, their kids, right, have grown up. Virtually everything was on a platter, and now they are studying or even working abroad or settled abroad. And unfortunately, whatever their parents have earned, they invested in India, whether it's in bank deposits, fixed deposits, investments, or more importantly, land and properties, where the kids are absolutely not interested. Because they themselves have made a kind of a fortune on their own, and they are the last ones to even think of even going to India to even, because I had one of my listeners telling me $500,000 in a public sector bank in India, and has no clue how to get this for their kids, because the kids are just not interested even walking into that bank, because this guy doesn't even have net banking. So you can imagine. So yeah, that's I guess the next challenge for a lot of Indians.
No, NRI absolutely is a book waiting to be done.
Wonderful.
And I have a few projects lined up. I think after that I will come to NRIs. But I think a book for women is something that I've had very close to my heart, that it needs to be done. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Monika, since you're on this, this podcast with me, there's some question I have to ask you with the recent SEBI guidelines on the influencers. And we do come across a lot of these, what they call as Telegram channels where people get totally confused, and I think they get influenced end of the day, and they get into futures and options, which is the last thing one should get into, even if one doesn't even know in the first place. So what are the kind of the nitty-gritties of these SEBI guidelines that really now hopefully channel the influencer community to an extent, if you can share?
So I cannot speak for SEBI, but I can tell you what I understand from the public statements that the chairperson and their other communication has been, is that it is impossible to monitor Telegram channels and other social media networks to figure out who is giving what advice. But what they can control is the SEBI registered entities.
Okay.
The brokers and the not the banks, the brokers, the mutual funds and stock exchanges. So all of these they can regulate.
Yeah.
They're trying to cut off the money flow from some of these entities, largely, I think, brokers, who are financing some of these financial influencers. Because finally, if the influencer says, look, XYZ brokerage is giving me this great deal, why don't you trade through that, and then makes them trade very heavily. The broking house is actually making the money, so they are paying the influencers. I think SEBI's attempt is to cut the flow of oxygen from the SEBI registered entities to these influencers. And it is clearly said after this board meeting that these are violating securities laws. This kind of advice is violating securities law. So anyone who's doing this now is doing it at their own risk, but because should it come into SEBI's radar, they are going to be in trouble. And SEBI has made a carve out for people who are doing pure education. And I would probably put you and me in the same category, that I don't think at any point I would have said buy this stock or this particular mutual fund, or you target Nifty or Sensex at this number, right? So the projections can be growth, it can be a CAGR growth, it can be a long term, but so I think that carve out has been made for people who are doing pure financial education.
Wonderful.
So that I think is a good signal, because if that carve out was not there, then this pure education would also stop.
Also be within that gap.
So you throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
So they make this distinction very clear.
Yeah.
But anyone who's giving specific advice, and there is so much of this pump and dump, right? So pump a stock up.
Yeah.
You get onto these channels and you get people to buy.
True.
So the other thing that I want to say is that, look, investors are all 18 plus, you're adults.
Yeah.
You have to use your discretion.
Yeah.
You've got to not really throw your money away when you know SEBI's put out that data. 9 out of 10 people make losses in F&O.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's skewed towards the retail investor. The big guys make the money.
True.
So why are you going again and again and thinking that you will get rich overnight? And again, it is some of these influencers who show their lifestyles, the house, the car, and say, look, I made this kind of money.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hopefully.
So you really have to keep your greed under control.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And hope this one step makes all the difference. And, because there was this recent, one of my guests on my show happened to be sharing a crazy example of a student in Osmania University, where he happened to be as a guest there, where the student had invested 32 lakhs in F&O and lost all the money, and that's when the principal of that college told the student that aapka future bhi nahi, option bhi nahi hai. That's where the life is. So that's the tragedy, right? People get so influenced by all this, but hopefully this step from the SEBI makes all the difference.
I hope so.
Positive.
Absolutely. Yes.
One last question before we leave. You have been in this world for a couple of years now. do you see a tectonic shift, a paradigm shift in the investor awareness, be it mutual funds or any kind of investments, safe investments, because of a lot of SEBI or AMFI or of course industry doing a lot of effort on investor awareness? Do you see that huge difference, more so in the tier 2 and 3 cities?
Yeah, I think so. I've been in this space long enough to know that people would buy new fund offers thinking they're cheap at 10 rupees. Now that question doesn't come. Now, maybe 1 out of 100 will ask that question. But this whole thing that I will buy the NFO because it's cheap at 10 rupees versus an existing scheme which is NAV at 56. So that communication has been made very clearly that a mutual fund gathers no premium. It is mark to market every day. And a 10% rise in the 10 rupee NFO and the 56 with the same portfolio will give you exactly the same return. You don't have to buy something, it's not cheaper. So I think that communication has gone well. The other communication which has gone very well is that when markets fall, it's an opportunity to correct your asset allocation. So when post election results, when the markets fell, so when the markets rose after the exit polls, data is showing that Indian retail investors sold. And when the markets fell, they bought.
Smart.
This is completely contrary to global evidence that retail investors buy high and sell low. So the Indian retail investor who's been seasoned in the market is buying low and selling high, which I think is a huge win for everybody who has been in the space of financial education, that at least to a certain community of people, we've been able to transmit this idea that look at your asset allocation, correct it when it changes dramatically. So I think there have been huge differences in people who've been open to understanding how it works.
And we do come across lots of success stories. I recently again came across a very successful story where a lady whom I know very well, her maid started investing. She pushed her to start investing in mutual funds almost when she started, and that's around 1994-95.
Wow.
Today, the maid, she bought a house near Mumbai, and her kids have apparently now completed their graduation, and they got a job in one of the big four. Amazing success story, right?
And fantastic.
And this lady who I know, she spent a day at her new place.
Wow.
That's absolutely
what a lovely story. Yeah, that's a win.
Absolutely. On this very, very positive note, thank you so much, Monika, for always being on my, pleasure having you on my podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much and wish you all the luck.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye. And well, with that, we come to this another beautiful episode of The Sound of Money from me, Santosh Sirur, and my guest, Monika Halan. Bye-bye and take care.